Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. It's round 18. I'm reviewing your teams, answering your questions here on Thursday afternoon as we lead into the lockout of the Sydney Bulldogs game. As most people are aware, there has been some absolute carnage so far this round, and there is more to come. And I've just had some more hot off the press, so we will get into that in a moment. But as always, check us out on all our social media platforms: YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, TikTok, and if you want to contact us, Twitter, Supercoach Insider 100 or Swizz26. Thank you to Splash Vodka for all their ongoing support of this podcast and all the fans that continue to check us out. We really do appreciate all the support that you give us each and every week. And if you haven't already, we have our group podcast out and we've all put out our team reviews. So please check that out. Like, subscribe if you haven't already. Talking about liking and subscribing, my other project at the moment with the Centre Bounce and a few team supporters in the Saints TV, Damo from Hawk Talk. I think we've got Luke there from the Pies. We've been working on a project called Fancast AFL, so if you like your footy talk shows, please like and subscribe that and give us some support. If you've got any questions for that show, we usually record on a Friday afternoon, so feel free to send your footy questions to us and we will do our best to put them on our run sheet and answer them. Talking about other things that we're doing, August 4th at Crown, the pub, we will have our latest Supercoach show, so that will be with the Herald Sun boys. Heath Shaw will have a few other noteworthy podcasts, and even Chris is flying down for it. So if you want to meet us and listen to us talk our normal crap about Supercoach, get a great meal at the pub. They do a great job there at Crown, and hopefully not just it's going to be a great night for us Supercoaches, but the Tigers are playing the Bulldogs after that. So hopefully it's a really good night of footy, and we can all sit there and prepare our teams for what should be another good round of footy. But talking about rounds of footy, round 18, wow. The carnage has absolutely ripped through most teams. So here are some of the names that have been either ruled out or potentially going to be ruled out. So we've got Bailey Smith, we've got the Freo boys in Young and Cox, as well as Sarong after that tackle, which most of us don't agree that deserved a week. However, from a Supercoach perspective, as a non-owner, I absolutely thought that was fantastic. Jake Lloyd, with that concussion after Nankervis took him out and got the 3 weeks, so Nankervis also out. Dunkley out for another week. Sheldrick, Ridley's looking like a most likely out. Darcy Cameron has been ruled out. Warner from Sydney also. And the latest one is we've got Horn Francis and Charlie Dixon from Port Adelaide are most likely to miss this round. So plenty of carnage. What that means for us super coaches, apart from the popular ones there and trying to cover all these injuries, but there is some definitely big points for certain players this weekend. Horn Francis out would be great for owners of Wines, Butters and Rosie, because it most likely mean they will get more midfield time. The Freo backline with Cox and Young missing means Ryan should have an absolute field day, especially if Collingwood are going to beat Fremantle. He goes about 22 points better in losses, so definitely somebody I've been considering vice-captaining. But Dacos is the other one, especially now with Darcy Cameron out. There's plenty of points in that game to be had. So, yeah, Dacos and Ryan could just have an absolute field day. Brayshaw as well. So you're talking about 3 players just in Sarong, Cox and Young. The 2 of them average around 90 and Sarong over 110. And then you've got Darcy Cameron around that sort of 90 mark. So their replacements most likely are going to come in. You'll probably score 50, 60s. So, yeah, you're looking at, it could be 120, 150 points more available than there would be on any given week. So you think the best players will stand up and get a fair chunk of that. So I really like VCs out of that game. No Hinkley, Tom Hinkie out tonight. So they've dropped him. Hayden McLean going up against English. We know what English has been doing in the ruck anyway, so he could have a field day. A lot of people are looking at vice-captaining him. So I've got no problems with that. And as well as Bont and Goulden, without Warner still, Goulden's been performing really well. And Bailey Smith, as much as it's been not performing that well, it's just another big mouth that they that takes points out of that Bulldogs midfield. So potential for one of them to get off the chain. So plenty of VC options opening up on the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at the moment. All right, reviewing teams. So we'll start off with Jen here. Hot Pies ranked about 25,000 overall. And for most of her sites, actually fairly good. It's just the Carnage, which is unfortunately hit. She's got Dunkley there in the midfield, so hopefully Warlord's playing there, and that'll cover that. If not, it's going to be a little bit of a problem. Melican there does give some support and gives the flex. It's actually a shame because I don't think you've got a defensive midfielder. So it'd be great because if Melican was to score well, you can put Constable on the field. Just that's one warning to going through a lot of teams. A lot of people are hoping Constable's a loophole. Change of coach this week. Potentially could get named, so we've got to watch those team sheets. Marriage down the forward line, that's going to be one that a lot of people are going to be hoping. Hashtag in marriage we trust this week. So hopefully he can score well because, for Jen, doesn't have Dunkley in that forward line, so it's going to be covering Darcy Cameron there. So that's fairly standard. The Mills and Wines I actually quite like. I know I've been copying a little bit on Twitter about that because some people are like, it's not a strong midfield, but I've been pretty confident Wines and Mills can go up between 100 and 110 on the run home. It's rough. They're roughly going to score that. They can have their bad games and good games, but even you just saw what Mills did in that last quarter. Hopefully Wines without Horn Francis, if that's the way it eventuates, goes really well again this week. So, I think that's fairly solid on that. It's just probably the biggest worry is the two North boys in the back, Sheasel and Zeeble. I know a lot of people are trying to trade Sheasel, but against the Hawks this week, could be potential to go quite well. So I wouldn't be doing going too drastic that. And I'd be in particular waiting to see how Melican goes as well. That's a very important one. We've actually got a few of the girls to start off with here. So we'll go into Grundy's, which is Jess. Jess is ranked 2,884. Didn't score that well last week. Of some carnage. Still has Max Gorn, which is really interesting. Grundy has been left out. Talking about carnage, but drop. They've made the hard call. So Gorn versus the Big O. It will be a very interesting matchup. Potential VC option there for you, Jess. So I'd be kind of looking at that. Still holding Oliver, so I wonder if she's got a trade left there to move him on. You'd really be hoping Wagner plays to cover Lloyd. So this is why the score last week and the rankings drop, because trying to cover Oliver, Jez, Warner there, Lloyd this week. It's just and this is the unfortunate. I think Jess was quite around that top 1,000 mark not that long ago, and then you just have these injuries. DC up forward, Dunkley in that midfield. It's just brutal, and you're going to find that this week. This is moving week. We talked about the other day. It's like the golf on day 3. You're going to have someone make a big charge this week, and if you've avoided a lot of this carnage, you're going to be absolutely flying. So of the premiums here for Paul Jess, 1, 2, 3. Warner 4. We'll count Jezza as a 5 and Darcy Kane, so that's 6 of your main starting 22 out. It's absolutely brutal. Don't know how many trades you've got left there, but it really gets difficult here because you kind of want to keep these guys, and maybe it's the potential. Well, I think Oliver frees up. In the perfect world, this is where the boost does come in handy, having the 3 trades, because you could definitely go like a Dunkley, Oliver, both of them out and get 3 sort of premiums by upgrading one of the rookies and really sort of strengthen the side. But that's going to be pretty brutal this week. And the good thing about this, having a look through some of these, we've got everyone's ranked in kind of a different spot, so you're kind of getting a snapshot of what other teams are looking like and get a bit of an idea of how you feel like you sit against these teams this week. Supercoach Mama Emily has won it before 2 years ago, back up near the top, ranked 872, absolutely flying this year. So having a good look through her team. I really like the backline. Took the risk on Wanganeen Malira. That seems to be paying off, getting a lot of kicks out of that defence, taking kick in. So good. Got Will Day there in the defence, carrying Dunkley at the moment, which is fine. Jack Steele, actually a lot of love here for the Saints players. That's 4 main players. So that's quite interesting. So we've already got Dunkley on the bench, so that's fine. Darcy Cameron's the one, which is going to be covered by marriage. So that's probably the big one. I did see, Emily, maybe a little chat about a potential trade there. with Darcy Cameron, but I think that just mucks up the ruck loophole, especially when you're like me and you're carrying Briggs. I don't think you can do it, and just hopefully it's only 1 week for Darcy Cameron, which is a real frustrating shame. She's the one, as I said, probably can hold just for 1 more week and have a look at. So yeah, that's fairly solid. It's interesting that these midfields kind of very similar, but 1 or 2 players, and then if like one of these guys get off the chain, like Jack Steele did last week, and he's not that highly owned, so it's a massive boost. The Libba one last week was disappointing, but you're always going to have these players go up and down. But that's pretty solid. So that's a really good snapshot of a very solid team from somebody who has been at the pointy end of the season before. So yeah, I think that's usually a good starting point. If you've got some trades left, it's a good way to look at. Should be hoping that Wagner plays this week. There's potential for him to come back in with all the injuries that you're having. And we'll go one more fair. We'll pick on the other half here. So Bomber Blitz 9,357, and let's have a look at the team here. Outside Jake Lloyd, which is very frustrating. But if you've got Melican cover, and especially if you're actually considering trading, because some people got like she's all there. So the first thing you need is Constable not to play. So definitely need to check that out. But if Melican goes 70 or 80 this week, you don't need to make anything drastic. And even if it was, say, Sheasel here, you could just bench Sheasel and have Melican score come on. And if in this case, Jake Lloyd being out, there's a potential there for Melican to get a quite decent score. Bench, the bit of an issue here with Wardlaw and Robertson, but at least that's cash. I do know she's got trades left, so there's potential to go 1 up, 1 down there to get one of these premium midfielders in. And then some of these midfielders, it's interesting because the news last week with Tuke was playing forward. For those who have Anderson and Rowell, which I think Chris does as well, you're looking quite good. But now with the change of coach, it'll be interesting to see kind of if he tweaks anything. The forward line is absolutely stacked. Got the 6 big boys, but Jack McRae sitting in the midfield does help because the situation this week with Dunkley out and Sheldrick, McRae goes forward, Dunkley comes to the bench, Dev Robertson comes on. It does help there. And depending on if she keeps Dev Robertson, it's very easy, like Dev Robertson maybe down, Wardlaw up, gets that other premium on field, and then you just maybe use a Cooper Harvey, for example, to cover for this 1 week. So yeah, that's for a team that's around that 9,000 mark, that's not too bad. Good score last week, 2,500. I'll give her some credit there. Man of Steel, Jono. So as Jono loads up here, what do we got? So similar score last week, 25.04, ranked just inside the top 5,000, 4,698. We'll be hoping Chester does something to cover Lloyd. He looked all right last week, Chester. So yeah, it was his highest score he scored. Hopefully another 50 for him. The West Coast players do seem to rebound a bit better. And then at home, we even saw that with Marriage. Like the 44 last week was fairly handy, but the week before he went, was it 76? The home games, they naturally will play a little bit better. That midfield looks pretty strong there. We talked, as I said, I'm comfortable with Wines and Mills, but the fact that he's not carrying them at all, like the Noah Anderson pick, looks really good. Dev Robertson on the bench again. Dunkley already sitting there. The only problem here is Darcy Cameron and Fife. Cameron's missing this week, so you've got Marriage there, but what are you doing to cover Fife? So that's the big issue. So hopefully for Jono there, he's got a couple trades up his sleeve. Probably the best bet, and it's really hard because there's not a huge amount of cash gen, but Robertson is there, so it might be Fife down to a really cheap option. And maybe the perfect world is because you've got Chesser and Constable both sitting in your defence. Fife down to maybe I think it's Duar from West Coast. He goes back. Constable comes into the midfield, and then you trade out Dev Robertson and bring in maybe an extra mid-forward situation there. It depends on how much cash you actually have, but I think what's Dev about? 289. So and Fife. So I'm just trying to get a close up. So Fife, if you go down to 102k player. And shove that on Robertson, you could potentially even get up to like it could be like a Jackson McRae or who are you missing in there? Potentially even a Butters. Like, wouldn't that be a perfect world? Imagine bringing a Butters in there and just really finishing off that. And then because you've moved this week, you're having that the Dunkley sitting on your bench for this week. And then the following week, you can move a Darcy Cameron or a Himmelberg off and they can be your cover. And because you'd have Duwa, you could cover your back line if need be. You could potentially, if you've got more trades up your sleeve, look up getting rid of Sheasel. So there's plenty of things you can do with that team and make a real run. Maybe not. Well, there's always potential moving day. Like, it's not going to take a lot of points to get up to 1,000 this week because I think a lot of teams in that top 1%, which I think is top 1,800, are going to have some issues. So, yeah, maybe if you've got a couple trades up your sleeve there, Jono, you can potentially get aggressive. We'll look at Chris now. Rich Watt, good man here, Chris. So he's got Sicily there, which I'm very happy to have. So he comes in. I'll be putting the emergency on O'Donnell tonight. I don't think he's going to score very well, but just the fact that you can loophole O'Donnell into Chesser looks good. We've got Dunkley sitting there. Hopefully he's back this week. So Fletcher's covering him in the midfield. Again, in Marriage we trust. There's got a couple issues there, like as I said, Sheasel, hopefully for Sheasel rebounding. Probably the big one now is also has Sarong out, so there might need to actually be some sort of trade there. And this is where the problem is. Like, we're looking at a guy who's ranked 3,500. You're using Marriage to cover Darcy Cameron. Still has Sheasel, who you're hoping goes well against the Hawks, but there's no guarantee there. Like, he obviously has had a bit of a form slump. You're carrying Fletcher in the midfield, so there's another rookie that you're waiting for, there, and then you're trying to maybe potentially bring in someone, and there's not a lot of cash flow there to try to cover Sarong for a week. So, unless it's a case of, actually, it can't even be, because I was like, if he had a defensive midfielder, he could make that swap, but he doesn't have one. So this is going to be a bit of a problem. So yeah, be very kind of interesting what he does here. I think there might be some talk about one of these guys to a Cooper Harvey, who could potentially go like a 60, and that's better than nothing, because some people are going to have the donut, which will be very interesting there. All right, my mate, we'll get Grimo up, 232 overall. Absolutely flying, 26-22 last week. So here's another different snapshot of a team who has been absolutely flying. He's been trying to prepare for all situations. So the back line solid, gone a couple of real different pods here. So he's got Himmelberg, who I think is going to explode one game. 4'11", looks really good. Salem, it's a very different player that I don't think I've seen appear in any team, but got him at good value. So the defence are all playing. You've got a midfield there, and the only problem is there's Fife. But he's got Dawson. He's actually got Jordan Dawson in his midfield. So this is what I was talking about before with people. If you have those loophole options, it does mean you can cover people. So Fife comes off, Dawson's on the field, and then he's got all 8 players playing there. The English-Marshall combination. The only issue is this forward line. So Dunkley and his cover, Sheldrick, not playing. So if he does have a trade, he's going to probably want to be looking at somebody for Fife. Unfortunately, there's not a huge amount of options for that forward line, so he might be potentially look at going down. But yeah, that's the issue there. And I'm sure because he's ranked 232, he'll be trying his best to cover that donut. So that is the frustration thing. Nothing worse than having somebody like Fife as your cover or Sheldrick as your cover, and then they're both missing. And the other point, actually, I just realised Darcy Cameron as well, so he's actually got to try to cover 2 forwards. So that's going to be real interesting how he does that. There's not even that many options there, which is really hard. That's going to be fascinating to see. There is a team who is ranked quite high that might have a donut or 2 this week. Let's scroll down here. Thank you for those people who did send his team. We'll get into, let's get up the great man himself. Let's get up Abs. Abs Magic. A lot of people follow him on the old YouTube. He's been doing a great job this year. Still ranked 25-38, and he's had a bit of a disastrous year compared to the standards he set last year with the fourth finish. So interesting one to look at. Ridley out and Yo, and I think knowing Abs, he's probably out of trades too. So this is going to absolutely kill him. And here's another person that can be caught this week. 2,300 last week. Again, Ridley, Yo out, Fife sitting there on the bench. So that's going to be a struggle. At least the midfield are all playing. The Marshall-Briggs combination, which is fine. Midfield, Dunkley and Jeremy Cameron. So Jeremy Cameron is meant to be coming back in this week. So that will take away some of the pain, which means all 6 players are playing up the forward line. There's just the issue with that defence. So I don't think Cowan's coming back. We'll be hoping for a Constable, but there's not a lot of cover happening outside of that. So there's a donut happening with Abs. Really like the midfield. Anyone who's got Rao sitting there at M8, that's looking good. But at the same time, with Tuke coming back and the new coach, there is potential there that he might run a few different players through. Flanders might continue to get opportunity, especially if they go down this week. So I'd probably be more confident of Wines or Mills going home. So it does look more solid, but that'll be kind of interesting there. So that is Abs. A few people have sent in their ones, so we'll go to Lisa, who's Heaney in the Jets, and she's back ranked about that 8,500 mark. Scored another good score last week, 25-70. As we said, that back line, hoping for a Wagner name, because that will obviously change everything. Chincotta continues to play, so it's not great, but 30 or 40 points is still better than a 0, and that's all. That can be the difference, because I think I'm 700 points off first place at the moment. And if you kind of think about that, like I've talked about in my previous pods, that round 1 lost nearly 100 points. I think it was 90 because of the captain option. There was another round with rookie roulette where I lost 120 points, and there was another VCC option where I think I lost, it might be 30 or 40 points. So there's 250 points just there, which all of a sudden move you, like, I think it could be as high up as like 250th or not 250. I mean 50th overall. So there's such a close gap between so many sides this year. Little differences can change everything. The actual good thing here would be normally is Will Day in this, and I really like the fact, as I've talked about, the defence midfielder. So Will Day could come back and cover a Lloyd. The only problem is you would need Sheldrick to cover that, and he is out today. Again, Marriage, here's Dewar, who I was saying before. So he's the one that, and if she's got a trade left, she could potentially move him back and then swap Wagner into the midfield, and then Roberts goes forward, and you can actually do that and then reverse trade so you don't actually waste the trade, and then have the ability to loophole Sheasel back. Darcy Cameron not being there is going to be a problem. So I'm probably thinking, it's going to be really hard here. Like, the miracle thing would be Madden to be named, but that's not going to happen, isn't it? With no real cash there outside maybe Chincotta, it's a hard decision to make. Do you trade Chincotta, who's most likely to play and cover Lloyd for his 30, 40, 50 points? So that's probably not going to help you. We know Marriage is going to play anyway, so that's covering Darcy Cameron. So it's probably, any trade you're probably doing is just bringing a rookie anyway with that cash generation. So I wouldn't do anything there. And you're just kind of wear the rookies, but at least they're not donuts. So that could be the difference. These midfielders, they're pretty similar. It's interesting that she has got both loopholes in there. Taranto and Dane hasn't gone the full, just pure midfield. But this is probably, these situations are probably helping because this, as we've seen a few teams, just having the 8 pure midfielders, kind of like I've got at the moment, has meant, haven't had that ability to loophole and move a premium into that forward line. And on any given week where there might be only 1 or 2 injuries, that would be fine. But unfortunately, there's so many injuries out there. It's really hurt teams this week. We'll go I think it's Toomba FC next, which is Harry. Again, backline's fairly similar. Like most people have the Dacos, Stewart, Dawson, Sinclair. I really think Sicily is an option. If you can get him in, that will be a point of difference. Weddle probably has to be moved, but again, it's a bit like Sheasel. They're playing North Melbourne. He's scored a 75. It's not the end of the world to keep him here. Midfield's pretty solid, and it looks like there is no carnage there. There's no carnage in the back line. Now, this dreaded forward line, what have we got here? Darcy Cameron, which is a bit of a problem, which at the moment it's marriage. And then Dunkley sitting on the bench. So does have Cooper Harvey there, which is handy as well. So there is probably that ability to run. I'm trying to think. It's hard because Cooper Harvey and Mitchell are playing at the same time. And then I think you've got marriage straight after that as the 4:40 game. So unfortunately can't loophole Mitchell into marriage, which would be perfect. But at the very least, as much as they're rookies, they are players that are scoring. So that'll be interesting. Hopefully you've got some trades left there. So I'd be holding onto these players, your Sheasels, Weedles, Mitchells this week, having another look, and then probably trying when these players come back, your Dunkleys come back in, you can go Mitchell down and then try to upgrade maybe a Weddle to another premium. And you'd be trying to look at some value. So the one I've been saying is like your Himmelbergs because it's 410. The one that I want to have a look at this week is George Hewitt in the midfield, as much as a midfielder, and most people don't need it. But if you're like that last team and you had Day in that midfield, you could potentially bring somebody like that there if he was to score well now that Kennedy's out. I think we've got Wilkie Bar Kid, which is Taylor. 336 overall. So this is somebody who is challenging Grimo. So this will be very interesting. Houston, Sinclair, that is a pretty solid back line. And with missing the carnage there. Midfield, no Sarong. And that is a very strong midfield. To have your Petrarca and Libba and Tom Green sitting at M8, fantastic. Dunkley sitting there in the midfield, that's fine. Chin Cotter, and there's that loophole that we were talking about there. I like the English Briggs combination. Just we need a low game for Marshall. Again, like a lot of teams, got Darcy Cameron as the cover, and it's in marriage we trust. So it's overall pretty solid, and we just hope marriage sort of scores a perfect world would be 60. Anything 60 and above, great. Because look, Darcy Cameron only scored an 80 last week, so it's not that far off the mark. So you'd take that. But it's not going to have a donut. So looking good and could definitely push in towards that top 200 this week, which would be fantastic. We'll go Aaron next, who's a genie in the bottle. Again, backline really solid. It's interesting that who's decided to go Houston. Will Day is still very serviceable, so that's good. Again, this great midfield, really like that. And Chin Cotter and Dunkley. I feel like that's why it has not updated. There we go, genie in the bottle. That makes sense. I was going to say, how have we got the exact same? All right, genie in the bottle. As it's Sarong, which is the problem. Johnson. The good thing is last time one of these guys was missing, which I think it was Sarong. Johnson scored really well. The hard thing is he is up against Collingwood, but there is potential there. Johnson playing in that role, he could put up another 70, 80 game. He has done 99 before. So it is a very good loophole to have with Sarong coming out. They're pretty well handcuffed to each other, which is great. So you've got Johnson there handcuffed to a Brayshaw or Sarong out. That is perfect cover. The old handcuff really used more in like NFL fantasy. So you say you have quarterback and your quarterback misses, well, you try to draft the second quarterback, the quarterback 2 on the roster, because if one's out. And it's a bit like the rucks. If, say, Briggs was out and Madden was fit, he might be the next coming in. So that I think that's fantastic. Again, it's marriage and Darcy Cameron. Everyone's facing this, but the other issue now is the Dunkley one. So you're going to have the donut there, and Jack Bauer. It's been the frustrating thing if people have brought him in. And there's just no cash gen again, and this is where it comes. Where we have these premium mids which look awesome, but not having the value. And I think there's some really good lessons to be learned from here for next year about how do you go all in on these 600k premium guys, or do you try to get a lesser player so you can still have some value or some cover on your bench? And that's what I've been sort of talking about for the last couple of weeks. Cam Savaki, Corey, North Melbourne guy. Big fan of the shows. Really appreciate your support. It was great meeting you at the North Melbourne Essendon game, mate. And let's just see if this one wants to jump up for us, which it has. Okay. So the big one here, the back line, it's fine. Sard, it's a bit different, but I do like that. The two Carlton boys in down back. Yeah, we should just really go straight to this forward line. So have we decided? Now, Darcy Cameron again. Sheldrick is the cover, so it's going to be Marriage. But Harvey Harrison as well. So that is going to be brutal there, mate. And there's no person to loophole there at all. It's really annoying that Walsh missed the forward status, and it was so close. And we were looking at, come last week, if Stewie Dew was going to keep his job, and Vossi didn't muck us around. Sam Walsh, F1, Tuke Miller, F2, that would have been amazing for next year. You're going to have to seriously consider moving one of these guys if you've got a trade cam. Who are we talking to? Corey. Potentially to maybe a Cooper Harvey. And it's not the best situation because he's probably going 50 or 60. But now that he's in, you think North Melbourne are going to give him some good game time because you're going to need that extra. You just hope it's not like a Harvey Harrison situation. But yeah, Harvey Harrison down to Cooper Harvey. At least you're going to get, avoid that donut. So that's probably my recommendation there. Pikes Keys Tigers. Been doing great things in the Richmond group this year. So 2,223 overall. Again, fairly standard. Tom Mitchell, a little bit of a different pitch than Parrish. So picked them both up at a little bit value. And this is what we were talking about before. Spending 100,000 cheaper. Kind of a bit different. Actually, very different team because he's got Caleb Daniel, who is that forward defender, and he was going really well. The issue here, we've got Dunkley and Cameron. Davies not going to play. And I don't know if there's a cover there for him to come in. No, because it's all pure midfielders. So again, it's he's staring down at the donut and might have to be looking again at that rookie, that Cooper Harvey, just to avoid the donut, which is pretty frustrating. Right, and then we will get into a couple of these really top teams, and we'll have a bit of a look at that. Actually, just before we get into that, I'm just going to pick on a couple of guys. We'll have a look at New Look Blues. What's Tim doing here? 5,000. He's a big Blues man. Yeah, brutal. Ridley. So how are you going to cover that if he does look like he's out, which is most likely? Sarong, Johnson, which is great. We've already talked about that. Mitchell, you can hold. But he actually is, I think he's the first team that doesn't have Cameron. So that is a bonus there for him. If it wasn't for the Ridley situation, now he does have Dewar, who could normally swap with Mitchell, which would cover that, but unfortunately he doesn't have the an extra forward because Dury and Buller are both not playing. So yeah, I don't think there's any chance for Buller to come back in. So that's going to be a little bit frustrating there. Dave, the talent scout, which I think this is 40 side, so happy birthday to you if this is your side, mate. Backline, yeah, that's good. And this is the one thing, at least with Sheasel still there, avoiding Mullen. Hopefully keeps his spot for another week, but it's not going to make a difference because it doesn't need the cover there. But again, this forward line, Sheldrick is going to be a bit of a problem. In Marriage We Trust, still got the rookie there. But the big thing here is look at this midfield. So Dunkley's currently named in there, so he's got Fletcher handcuffed there. But yeah, Merritt, Neil, Laird, and then when you're starting to get to Brayshaw and Anderson at M7, M8, it's a bit surprising he's not ranked a little bit higher, but that's probably because of these rookies still. So this is where a team has gone all out, made sure he's got all the top premium guys, but then you're kind of short upgrading. So as I said, this is a little bit of food for thought going on next year when you're kind of doing your planning. We've got Wani's Moneyballers, and where that's this is Luke, 846. So fantastic year here for Luke. Zeeble in that back line with Mullen. So in a perfect world, you'd hope that Zeeble regains his spot. If not, you might have to look at a trade there. Midfield's pretty good with Keys sitting there, so that's that forward midfield link that we were talking about. With Fife being out, he can hopefully Wardlaw comes back in, Keys comes forward, covers the 5. Humphreys covering Darcy Cameron. So yeah, here's a team that's got everything planned out. It's not the best for some of these rookies, but at least these rookies also on the bench here. Your Woodlords, your 5s, your Humphreys. If Luke here has some trades, he definitely can make some big upgrades. But this is, again, the problem. But the Melicans, you're still relying on so many rookies. So this week with the Carnage, if he can make up some spots, and then if he does have trades up his sleeves, that will be looking really good. And then the last couple ones we'll finish off, and we'll finish off with some of these top teams in here. So this is 50 Shades, number 1, 26.39 last week. So how he's sitting this week. So he's got no defensive coverage, but they're all playing. The midfield is Sarong. Outside of that, they are all playing. So Sarong against again handcuffed to Johnson, hoping for a good Johnson score there. Marshall Briggs in that midfield, and then the forward line. It's in Marriage he trusts. He's still got Sheasel there, so it's again it'll be interesting there. So here's somebody who might able to be caught up with, because he is relying on Marriage's score and Johnson's score depending on how they go. It's a big asking for the rookies. So if we compare that, I think Harrison is number 2. And be interesting to kind of see how the difference with them will be this week. So if we scroll through, and hopefully that updates to Harrison. Yes, it is Gaza Forever. So he's got all defense playing, so that's a tick again. The midfield, he does have Sarong, but he doesn't have the person covering. He doesn't have Johnson there. English Marshall, so he'd be hoping that Marshall has another big game. And then the forward line, Rosie, Sheasel, Joey Danaher. Team number 2 has Joey Danaher in there. That is huge. Does struggle sometimes from home, so he's asking a lot. And then again, the big one, Darcy Cameron, doesn't seem to have an obvious cover. So he might have trades up his sleeve, but yeah, at the moment he's trying to cover 2. So the difference between that, so it's 39,327. And if we get back up 50 Shades, so it's roughly, 250 points. I probably think that 50 Shades is actually in better shape this week. We've got it, number 3 here, Benny. And I don't think, Ben, you're on the Tiger Forum. So if you aren't, shout out, give me get in touch with myself or Abdul, because we'd love to have you part of the Tiger group there. But his team is Cash Scratch Fever. Backline, Bailey Dell is an interesting one, but they're all playing. Still got Rory Atkins, went 86 last week, so at least that's some cash that if he's got trades he can do something with. The entire midfield's playing. He's got the Parrish, which is good value in there, but still does have Johnson. And then this forward line, has Darcy Cameron and Sheldrick, but does still have Eddie Ford and Marriage. So does have the rookie cover, which, as we said, it's not great, but it's still 30, 40, 50 points is much better than getting a donut. So yeah, that's an interesting one. I think he definitely catches the second spot this week, and yeah, it'd be interesting how much gap he can probably close on number 1. So watch out for that team. We'll go 2 more. Actually, we'll go 3 more, because was a late adder. So this is number 4, 26.30, so about 300 points. Still behind first. Pretty strolled with that back line, but the Mitchell and Sheasel, so we're hoping he has trades to upgrade that. Again, midfield with Ashcroft. The interesting is held him that long. He'll be an interesting one to see if he's like Dacos. We didn't trade him out last week. A lot of us traded him out early last year. Came home on an absolute heater. Does Ashcroft do the same? And then are we going to be in the same situation next year with Harley Reid? That will be very interesting. Luke Jackson up forward, not the probably best thing, because Sean Darcy back, probably going to take a lot of the ruck against Mason Cox, but you never know, he might get some good ruck time and get a good score, but it's going to be hard against the Pies. But for most of it, he has actually dodged a lot of the issues this week, and by the looks of it, actually he's dodged all the issues. So 250 points behind first, another one that could be making a bit of a run there, but is reliant on, though he's got, it's just the one kind of rookie in Sheasel, and let's call Ashcroft like a semi-premium, because he is scoring pretty well. There's a role in there with Dunkley out, there is potential for him to go large again, and even with Melbourne not having Oliver. So they're a very interesting team, that, and probably does for one that says hold your rookies, and you can see what it does. And we've got Dependlebury, which is Joel, who's the 5th place. So he's slightly back a little bit more. He's about another 100 points back. And again, trying to cover Darcy Cameron and Sheldrick with just marriage. So there's a donut, which is a problem there. The midfield, he's got Dunkley and Sarong. So some big problems there. And then he's got Jake Lloyd. So here is a team that is looking at all sorts of trouble. Only the 2,400 last week. So he's one that could, if he doesn't have trades or a boost, we'll be definitely looking at donuts, and then the potential of dropping outside that at least the top 10 and maybe even further. So that's really unfortunate, especially when you do everything all year and then you get into that situation. So I had a couple other late ones that just messaged me. So Red, White, and Bont, and this is Alex's team. Big fan of the show, so thank you for your support here, Alex. And we've got, what have we got from you? The backline. Redders, now hopefully he's come up all right after last week, but if Ridley is indeed out, that should definitely help Redders, especially if they see a bit of ball down the back line. Hopefully he can zone off, but it just depends. If he has to try to man up against a Jeremy Cameron, that might impact his scoring. Still has the Ashcroft and not the worst M8 at the same time. I'd be hoping to try to get him up, but with Jasper Fletcher there, that's fairly solid still, because you do have some backup. Here is the issue, which we all are facing. It's Dunkley and Darcy Cameron, Cunningham and Marriage, again, 2 rookies to cover that. It's not the best situation, but mate, it is not, it's not donuts again. So as we can see, and for a team inside the 2000, a lot of these teams very similar midfields, just slight differences. It's just really coming down to your bench cover. So 23rd, 24th, if it's premiums or if it is just your sort of rookies that you're covering. So I hope that'll be very interesting. A lot of these midfields very similar. So I think vice captain is going to be huge this week as well. Depending, because I feel like a couple players are going to get completely off the chain, and it'll be interesting to see how that compares to everyone else. And we'll get up. Lucky last, we'll finish with my boy, and I know he does his review too, but we'll get up here, Chris's team, who dropped outside the top 1,000 last week. So where are we here, Mr. Chris? Supercoach Insider Chris. And for most of it, pretty good. The interesting trade was when he brought in Burgess, because he got some really good VFL form, and thinking that's going to be... The good thing is that's a good loophole with Himmelberg, but he was hoping that he'd actually come in and play at some point. Doesn't look like it's the case at the moment, unless King maybe gives him an opportunity. Holding on Sicily this long has been fantastic, because just look at that back line. Very similar to mine. The only thing I'm different is I've got Ryan, he's got Houston. The midfield with the big difference there, I think me and him are very similar. It's just, I'm actually trying to think who I've got there different. I know I've got Mills in there. Compared to Walsh, and then Rowell, who does he have different to? Actually, I shouldn't even question that. I've got my team in front of me. There is one. He's got Merritt. He's got Neil, Brayshaw. So I'm running Brayshaw and he's running Rowell. So that'll be a big one this week. So no problems there with Chris. He's got that Marshall versus English compared to mine. It's just how does he cover Darcy Cameron? And then this is again the issue. He was really hoping Walsh was going to get forward status, because he could have put Walsh up in the forward, swapped him with Dunkley and covered with Johnson this week. That hasn't happened. So Chris has got to look at the potential trade there, and probably his own. Again, the problem is it's Buller, so it needs to probably be maybe a Sharp for a Cooper Harvey just to get those points. And again, it's not going to be a lot, but at least 50 points is better than 0. Otherwise, he's going to probably have to, he's going to slide further away from that top 1,000. It's going to be such a difference. So, that's just a bit of an insight of what are other teams and kind of compare it to the rank that's around you. It gives you a bit of an idea that there's, it might be even the teams that might be 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 spots above you are facing a lot of donuts this week. So if you're a head-to-head player and playing just for leagues, it's a different story. Have a look at your opponent, have a look where you're in the ladder, kind of make a judgment there. But for us, talking about overall, if you want to make big moves this week, maybe get aggressive. Even if you're down to those last 2 or 3 trades, make them. I think you've got a potential to really jump up some ranks this week, because we've seen how many teams there are either going to have multiple donuts or are going to be covering it with a marriage. You've got Johnson, even Ashcroft. There's a lot of reliance. She's all on players who started at rookie price or are still classified as rookies. So, very interesting that. I'll be on the chat just to answer any last minute questions that people have, and we will hopefully not have any more carnage going into this round, because anything more will be absolutely brutal for a lot of these teams, and there's a few teams there who have 0 carnage at the moment, would be rubbing their hands together. So hopefully people found that informative, and we will be back next week, hopefully with some better news around ins and outs. Have a great weekend, and we will talk soon.